Now, a long-awaited UN report recently estimated that Nigeria's Ogoniland region could take 30 years to recover fully from the damage that's been caused by years of oil spills. Joining us now from our studios in Abuja to discuss these oil spills is Peter Idabor, who's CEO of Nigeria's National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency. Peter Idabor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, let's talk about a UN report that came through this week suggesting that it could cost $1 billion and up to 30 years to sort out the degradation that's been caused by oil in the Niger Delta. As authorities, how do you respond to that?
Well, we've seen the report, and the federal government is currently studying it. We'll look at it and make recommendations to the government. Very soon, we expect that the white paper on the issue will come up, and the issue of 1 billion naira, well, we'll look at it and have our own estimates too.
How do you see the problem of the oil industry and the ecological degradation in Nigeria? Apparently, it's been a problem since Nigerian independence, since Nigeria discovered that it was an oil producer, and very little has been done to try to address that problem.
Yes, one of the issues that is really going on is that of having a very strong institutional framework, to regulate the oil industry with reference to oil spills. The National Oil Detection and Response Agency was set up in 2006 by the federal government to address this issue. And I think we're trying to see how we can create a stronger framework to carry on. And generally, it has been a problem of duplication of functions with some sister agencies, and then the oil companies do capitalize on that. And we don't know really who's responsible for the regulatory functions.
Right. I mean, just a report recently looking at this litigation that's taking place in London regarding Shell. Just to give you an example, 9 oil spillages in the last 3 weeks alone. 9 oil spillages in Ikarama in 3 weeks alone. So if you calibrate it in terms of the last 30 or so years of oil production, it's a very, very serious problem. And many people living in the Niger Delta will tell you that they can barely drink the water because of the contamination that exists. And some of the socio-political problems have really been as a result of the oil spillage problems. How urgently are you addressing these issues?
The issues are certainly going to be addressed over time. And yes, the incidence of oil spills in the region is getting really high. Oil exploration activities has been going on since the late 50s. That's over 50 years. And apart from, other social, effects resulting from anthropogenic factors, we also see that some of the pipelines need to be replaced. The average lifespan of a pipeline is about 20-25 years, and yet we are not having that, response from the operators, in replacing some of their pipelines. So we have equipment failure coming in as a factor, in some of the recent ones that you just talked about. Some of them actually as a result of equipment failure or human error.
Have you calibrated the costs? And let me just give you an example. Shell also just issued a force majeure this week, basically saying they can't honor their production and delivery agreements for the next couple of weeks because of pipeline sabotage. So those who are sabotaging the pipelines are sick and tired of living in these conditions. It has a direct bearing on Shell's balance sheet because then they have to secure their pipelines and then they can't get the oil to the market. So that's the second cost altogether. And then we've seen the violence that's broken out in the Niger Delta before the Yaradua and Jonathan administration. And then that had a direct socio-political cost on Nigeria. So when I talk about calibrating the costs, it's a financial cost for the balance sheet, it's a financial cost for the GDP of the country, and it's a social cost.
Yes, significantly so, yes. We expect that the cost in terms of money is quite high, but what we are doing now is, starting on the new page, we are trying to see how we can create more educational awareness, environmental awareness campaign program for the people, and to reduce the incidence of artisanal refining among the people. But generally speaking, we know that one of the factors that's driving this is unemployment and the frustration by the people who haven't lived for over 50 years with the oil industry side by side, see themselves not benefiting from the whole process. So what we need to do is to create alternative sources of livelihood for these people and take it from there. We are studying the UNED report now, and there's a presidential committee on ground set up by the president to look into the matter. And like I said, it's education, environmental education, and to bring to their knowledge the consequences of getting too close or having contact with crude oil, and the other components.
And Mr. Idabor, what about holding the oil companies accountable, especially as we start talking about deregulation and indigenization and a new petroleum industry bill? Isn't this the time to start talking to oil majors and foreign investors and saying you're going to be responsible for the solution?
Yes, you are rightly so. You are correct. I think that's going to be the new direction. And we are trying to see how we can, like I said before, strengthen the institutional framework to be able to regulate them properly and maybe hold them responsible for some of these spills that do occur in their operational areas.